Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UBNradio.com. To let myself is the only way.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's Della and Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul. We're invigorating talk about how to live your best life. We have a great show for you today. Before we get started, I want to offer for you to call in to ask our guests questions today. We are here at 323-284-7826, or you could go to our Facebook page, Del and Debbie, Mind, Body, Soul. Make a comment, ask a question. We keep our Facebook page up, so we will love to hear from you during this next 50 minutes. To get started, I am one of your co-hosts. I am Debbie Carlin Boyle. I am certified as a personal trainer, a fitness instructor, and an integrative nutrition and wellness coach. And one of the things I do is help people find balance in their life from all the things that feed us, in addition to the food on our plate. And sitting next to me, to my right, is my lovely co-host.
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Del Jones, and I'm a transformational coach with a background in spiritual psychology and the three principles. And I specialize in the areas of personal growth, relationships, and recovery from narcissistic abuse. So today, this is a very exciting show, especially for Debbie. Sorry.
Oh, I'm going to get picked on today.
Okay. So today we're going to talk all about love, but just not any old love. This is going to be extraordinary love. And who better to talk about this topic with than professional relationship coach, spiritual advisor, ordained minister, Huffington Post contributor, and creator of the Foundation of Extraordinary Love program, and that is Gabriella Taylor.
Welcome, Gabriella.
Yeah, well, let me just give you a little background on Gabriella. So for over 18 years, Gabriella has studied with some of the world's most successful and influential teachers in the field of personal transformation and self-mastery. And she brings a highly engaging and warm perspective to what a successful life looks like in business and in your personal life. She combines her vocation and the calling of her heart in assisting others to create more satisfying and fulfilling lives and relationships, especially when it comes to love and romance. So welcome, Gabriella. Thank you so much for being here today. And we're going to get started at the beginning, where we always like to start. So you're going to give us a little bit of background about where you grew up and what it was like growing up as Gabriella, and what we usually find a connection between how you grew up and where you are today. So
Yes,
that's what we're looking for.
That's where we're heading.
Yes.
So it's lovely to be here with you ladies.
Thank
You know, I would say that my calling came to me young, and my calling in terms of my ministry in the world and my work in supporting men and women and really restoring themselves to their true selves, especially in the context of relationship. And my calling came through the path of abuse and the path of misuse and the path of what it feels like to have an early developmental experience where what life brought to me resulted in a fractured sense of self. Mm-hmm. So through the path of really learning how to, I can't even say put myself back together again, because there wasn't really a baseline that I had a strong foundation to starting from. It was more the process of discovering who I was despite what had occurred, and reaching deep inside of myself to find.
Where was this that you grew up?
On the East Coast, in the state of Maine.
Oh, in Maine. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you're, if I just jumping in here for a second, because what I hear you saying is that you didn't define yourself in the end, thank goodness, by your life circumstances, but you really sort of found your spiritual nature, which is always perfect and whole and never damaged from life.
I learned early on, and it wasn't a process of trying to learn it. It was just this experience that despite these things that were happening to me that were extraordinarily traumatic, and many of them back to back for many years, something inside of me knew that I was untouched, that the deepest, truest me, that yes, I was going through this thing that was painful and it left, imprints and impressions on me, yet there was something inside of me that knew I was more than this and that more was possible.
Wow. And how early of an age did you really feel that? Did you know that you could get on a better road?
Very, very young, and I'd say preteens, early adolescence.
Okay, early adolescence.
Yeah, and I had a awakening experience at 18 where I had an overdose and essentially went into a coma and had respiratory arrest. And when I woke up, literally woke up, there was a light that came on that knew that something, I just knew that there was more, and now was the time. So I had a hit, I had a calling to buy a one-way ticket to Spain. And for $300, and I packed a backpack and went on a pilgrimage that ended up being around the world, where I had the privilege of living in ashrams, monasteries, communes, and really immersed myself in a new way of being.
At 18.
Yeah.
At 18. You just took
Well,
off.
you'd lived
That's brave.
a very, very long life before then. So
Yes.
you hit that early.
I
mean,
did.
in age wise, but sometimes people, but you just condensed an awful lot in a very short amount of time.
And I find that that's true for so many of us. Like the things, I had no idea that the level of sexual abuse that I sustained would actually be the pathway to freedom that I'm able to help people unwind from. And not to say people need to be sexually abused, but I'm saying...
Well, there are other traumas in people's lives they need
that
to...
affect our ability to trust, to be intimate, to know what's real for us and how to communicate that to another, to identify what our needs are. It's so the story might be different, but the end result is that we all want to have loving relationships.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's what Del was saying when we first started. That's the path you took that got you to where you're at today.
Absolutely.
So after all of this pilgrimage that you did throughout Europe and
Asia
Asia
all
and
around
beyond, what brought you back? And
What actually brought me back, I think it
love?
could be defined as a psychotic split, actually.
This sounds really good. Come on, let's go deeper.
how does that work out?
I had been doing, and this is a part of my, it's actually a part of the educational transformational models that I teach today. I had been immersed in so many intensified experiences of deconditioning. So I was living in communes. I was living in ashrams. I was doing tremendous amounts of deconditioning work and healing work, yet there was very little emphasis on how to resource ourselves, how to restore a felt sense of connection in myself. So here I was for quite some time at this point, really looking at purging, yet there was no awareness as to where to turn towards in myself to really put myself back together.
Right.
So that I joke psychotic split, but it to me, what brought me back was the sense that I had been doing so much work deconditioning, but I needed to find a balance in how to repair and restore. So what came me back was really needing to be in a cocoon, to come back into a cocoon, which is what brought me to California, where I was living in a healing arts center in Northern California. And that was some
and then
years
you
ago.
started the work on the road to finding your true self and your true purpose.
Yes,
too.
absolutely.
Wow, that's quite a
This
story.
was the late
actually.
90s when I came back.
Oh, wow. And so, what brought you to Southern California? So you landed in Northern.
What brought me to Southern California was the University of Santa Monica.
Oh, okay. USM.
Yeah, that was really what brought me here. And also just it's where I think there's certain parts on this planet where we're just meant to be.
Yeah.
And it's just really, it's my home.
Yeah,
in many
yeah.
ways.
It's funny how the universe points us in our directions,
Exactly.
right? You know,
I came here on, again, really a very difficult childhood, not really understanding why I was meant to be here, why I'd gone through some of the things I'd gone through, and came on. I got given a free ticket to LA one way, and I just said, I'll take it. I'll find my way back. Ended up in the Bodhi tree, I think, the first week I was here, and I went, oh my God, life is beginning to make sense.
Yeah.
And but there's something that draws you here, and you find your path, and it's pretty amazing. So how many years ago was it? When did you graduate USM?
I first went through USM in 2005.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so that's
before
been
me.
a while. Yeah. And what? So getting into the coaching field of creating extraordinary love, how did that path play out? How did you find?
That path played out before I even came back to America.
Okay, so
because I was doing a high level of
yourself.
apprenticing, and I was really learning how to work within realms of consciousness. So that started 1994 before we even called it coaching. It was just we would sit with people.
Yeah.
And so to me, that really, the path, it wasn't a path I chose, it was a path that chose me. And
Yes,
so
understood.
it began, and then throughout the years, the more I was looking at what had happened to me and the consequences of it, and the more I was learning how to heal my heart, rebuild trust, the more I really recognized that not only did I have a gift for it in terms of working with other people, but I also was experiencing a sense of wholeness in myself coming back together, that and being in an educational environments where I was learning how to work with people. It all sort of forged together. So now here we are, fast forward a couple of decades later, where it's really the territory that it's just the territory I know best.
Right,
Inside and out.
It's where you were meant to be.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yes.
And most people that are struggling in the area of self-love or in their intimate relationships, I mean, to hear your story, it gives people hope. I mean, that's the thing, because they really know that you're somebody that was, in a pretty dark place for a period of your life, and how you have been able to get yourself out of that, and what you've been able to attract and create in your life is amazing. So I mean, it's all for something.
Yeah,
It
Bottom
really
line.
is.
It really
It
is.
really
It teaches us. So I want, before we get, I know that you found your love. Should we talk a little bit about that before?
Because I think that sets the base for how you help
Yeah.
others find theirs. Because you said you did that journey and you did that path, and I want to hear the story because
did.
I'm going to take notes. So
So back in the early 2000s, I was just really aware. I had been immersed in the personal development field for quite some time at that point, probably a decade or so. And I was really aware that I knew there was this calling in my heart, that I knew that more was available, especially in terms of the quality of men that I was attracting and bringing into my life, and the repetitive relationship challenges that I was having. And here I was, this person that I knew a lot. I was smart. I had a lot of education. I was highly self-aware. Yet I had no idea how to bridge the gap. I had no idea how to connect the dots from what I knew conceptually and what I learned.
I think this is so true for so many
So
people that are
many
on the dating spin cycle.
Or
you
in
know?
relationship.
Yeah.
Even.
So
yeah.
I grew really fascinated with almost myself as a research subject of how do I actually apply what I know conceptually to my lived experience.
We have a caller already. So
Wow, okay.
hold your thoughts.
Yes, we're gonna
and
come back to this.
Caller, are you there? Hello?
Yes.
Hi, what's
Hi.
your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Bonnie. I live in San Francisco.
Hi, Bonnie. Thank you for
Wonderful.
listening.
Yeah, thank you. Do you have a question or a comment for Gabriella?
Well, just that I've had the benefit of working with her for
Ah.
several years now.
Wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience has been like for you?
Hi, Bonnie.
Yeah, and hi. Oh, hello. Just that it's probably, I mean, I can, but it's probably a futile exercise to describe in words the power of the experience. And I'm just so tremendously grateful to have received the benefit of her coaching. And I've been in the self-development world for a very long time, which did provide a great foundation. But it's just a whole other world that Gabriella introduces people to, and she's just an extraordinarily skilled practitioner, and I'm just so blessed to work with her. So I could go on for your entire show
Oh, well, that's
talking
wonderful.
about that if you wanted.
And did she help you find extraordinary love in your life?
That's a great question.
I put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
And a lot of her work, a lot of her work is, the primary focus, of course, is on our relationships with ourselves. And I'm also a coach in San Francisco, and that's also something that I ardently believe, because how we relate to ourselves is how we relate to others.
Absolutely.
And when we have that strong foundation within ourselves, nobody can take that away.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
I think there's so much focus on other coaching programs or other personal development on other and things that you can do to maybe excel in dating or finding, quote, the one, end quote, and all of these things. But it's really the journey of becoming beloved to yourself that opens the doors wide to all kinds of
So true, so
opportunities
true.
and possibilities.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you just summed up everything I would say.
Yeah.
Because my type of coaching is the same. I mean, it's really about going on the inward journey to self-love, self-acceptance, and rather than, this whole sort of achieve this goal and achieve that goal and follow this plan, and just finding out what's right for you inside of you. So, well, thank you so much, Bonnie, for calling in.
Yes, thank you for calling.
Yeah. So stay listening. We're going to hear all about Gabriella's finding her love, besides the one for herself, but also her partner.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Yeah.
And Bonnie brings up a good point, because I know that you have a quote. Your quote is, "The quality of life improves when your approach to life and yourself improves." And that is that's just a great heading to start from, and then work below from that. Because there's just, until you can get in touch with yourself and love yourself, it'd be very hard to maintain a really loving, strong, and bonded relationship with anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what I find is so many people are confused about that. Like, we're at a time on the planet where there's this evolutionary impulse. We're all wanting to experience more than what we've known was modeled in the past. Like, we're wanting more fulfillment. We're wanting more joy and connection and intimacy. We're wanting to self-actualize. Like, we're in this period of life where there's this calling, yet there's really no map. There's no model to look at to show us how to get where we're going, because in a way we're all pioneers right now. We're at a pioneering time
We're
in
scrappy.
history.
Yeah.
And with that, there's a lot of beautiful aspirational information about how to love yourself and how to respect yourself and how to be good to yourself. And what I found is that most people don't actually know how to do that, how to shift that awareness, of there's got to be something more, and it starts with me. But how do I actually love myself? How do I actually know what's true for me, let alone being able to speak to another, what's true for me? And so the process that I've found, and as we were saying back in the early 2000s, I led myself through what I called my own laboratory of love, where I just grew acutely aware of becoming a researcher of how I showed up in my dating experience. In everything from, was I being real? I call it the 3 Ds, or what I find most people sort of default to is feeling disempowered, disconnected, and disingenuous in their romantic lives. So it's like disconnected from, like, we're very often out here in the world, we show up one way, but behind closed doors or with our partner or with the person we're dating, we regress to a 12-year-old. So there's this disconnect from core self. There's this disconnect from being able to really line up what we've learned. We're all really smart, especially those of us that are devoted to our path. We're really smart. We know what the right things are to say, but our personalities may not our behaviors may not reflect what we know to be true.
We sabotage ourselves?
We sabotage ourselves. Some of this is blind spots where we can't even see it. There's the disempowerment. We think that the power literally is the person in front of us.
And we put all the power on them.
And I always
suck it out of us.
That phrase sort of, they complete me. It's like, no.
Yeah.
But we do.
Yeah.
Well, and there is a holy truth in it too. Like, I find it's a dichotomy, really, because
well, it could have a double meaning
because
too.
There's something extraordinary about knowing that we have someone at our back, like that. Absolutely. When we go home at night, that we have a mirror in our partner that reflects our glory, not our shadow, not our unmet needs, not our unfinished business.
It's so
Yeah,
important
exactly.
to, I work with people, like I said, all the things that feed us in life besides food, because food reflects what's missing or what the things that in our life we're trying to numb and not deal with. And relationships are so important, and a loving relationship, people, statistically across the world have longer lives of
Yes.
quality and
Yes.
longevity, because they do have that person that has their back. They do have that significant other that gets who they are as they get who they are, and that they have that beyond physical connection with them.
And even beyond that, I believe because we are at an evolutionary time where things are changing on this planet very rapidly, not only that does it impact our personal well-being, our personal longevity, but there's something about knowing that we're deeply supported that enables us to go out in the world and really shine our lights. So
Absolutely.
it benefits others. So
Yeah.
with what you're saying, hands down, and then, wow, what's possible if all that energy isn't going into like blame or
Yeah.
feeling like upset or like,
Right.
so-
you could
it's
just
so
put it out there for the
true.
good. Yeah.
I mean, I think about a lot of people that are in narcissistic relationships or where they're having abused. All the focus is on the person that's, maybe a narcissist, and there's no room for the codependent or the empath, however you want to describe it, to develop, because all the energy is going into soothing the other, giving to the other, placating, feeding them and everything. And you don't develop as a person. I mean, you're really just sort of hiding.
And in that, where we do have capacity to really reclaim a lot of our power is really in looking at relationships as the mirror. And what I
Yeah,
mean
absolutely.
by that, because we're taught that the relationship, the person out there, has the problem or
Yeah.
does the thing, or if they change, then we'd be
blame.
okay.
Yeah.
But if we really look at, like, why did I bring this into my field? Like, what is this sacred mirror reflecting to me? Like that, it's not easy.
Well, I own that
It's
one
not
completely.
easy, but it's the path of freedom. And
Absolutely.
And the way we do that, and this
Yeah.
is what I do in my 8-week Foundations of Extraordinary Love program, is we really look at our intimacy model. So we start unpacking, what did we see growing up? What were the rules about love? Like, what were the implicit agreements
And
that our
also-
parents modeled?
Exactly, and not just the parents, but you touched on this, the cultural influences, the whole Prince Charming and the damsels in
Yes,
the distress,
yes.
all our fairy stories.
God
fairy
help
tales.
us.
Or
We
if
are
the prince
spoon-fed.
doesn't, if the prince doesn't come and rescue us,
Yeah.
I remember. This is kind of personal, but I remember in therapy when my husband and I were going through those years of, after over 30 years together, we were trying to keep it. And I remember the therapist saying to me, and this is because of my preconceived way that I grew up, but the therapist said to me, what are you looking? What do you want? What is it that you're looking for to complete and make sure that you guys stay together? And I said, well, aside from knowing that someone does have my back, he was my knight in shining armor. He came along at a time in my life when I was young, when all my visions were of Prince Charming. And, when things started going south, it was like, whoa, wait, where, And I didn't look back at me and my conception of what I thought a true relationship should be, because that was my role model. All those fairy
Absolutely.
tales.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
when things started going down, I didn't look for anything but that.
Yes.
To keep that Prince Charming figure in my life. And still, in a way, being single, I'm still looking for that. You know?
Well, it's
So-
literally written into our system. It's literally written into our collective culture. Like we are spoon-fed it everywhere we look in terms of media and how we're socialized.
Right.
And in a way, like I was saying, there's really no model, or there are very few models to even build to. If we recognize that's not true, there's also this gap of, well, what is true?
Yeah, what is
and where
true,
do I
and
even
where do
look?
we
Yeah.
figure it
And
out?
that's
How do we
what we're
figure it out?
doing. All of us are doing in our own way. We are literally reconstructing a new relationship model as we speak.
Right.
Yeah.
As we speak.
And what I like
intriguing.
about what you talk about is that learning from our past. Because I know for me in some of my past relationships, not all of them, some of them have been fabulous. Those are usually the ones I left. And the difficult ones was the ones I stayed in. But it's...
Because you thought you could fix them.
Well, Well, no, because it was just my model of love
It was
was
familiar.
was
it probably equated love. Pain
well, yeah.
probably equated love.
Yeah.
totally and an absent father that was never there. So for me,
It was familiar.
It was longing. If
Yeah.
I was in longing, then that
Yes.
meant I was in love.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But what I was going to say, what I think is so important, which you do, which is not give the sort of surface tools and tricks and things, it's to really look at that relationship. Say a relationship you considered was maybe painful or negative, but to really, I learned so much about how I was treating myself. I mean, that person was purely innocently just playing a role to show
Yes.
me. It's like, well, I could say, well, they treat me this way. And I'm like, yeah, but they're just mirroring what I'm doing.
Did
to
you know it
myself.
at the time, though?
Thank God, because we were at USM.
Yeah, oh, so you did. So
I was
okay.
able to see it. At the end, I didn't know. I certainly, for the first part of these relationships, I wasn't able to. And like you said, you keep repeating these patterns. So
Familiar.
it's to really go in and use that. That's where all the gems are, right there in all your previous relationships. You know, whatever the tag is you gave it, but just learn from that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we want to learn from it. We want to see how what we're experiencing now may be a replica from the past, but we don't want to stop there. Then
Yeah.
it really requires like, well, who do I need to become? And I don't mean like a disingenuous, inauthentic part of ourselves. Who do I need to become? But who's the me I need to reach into that maybe I've never accessed before that can trust?
Yeah.
And
That
so,
can feel safe getting close to someone.
and so you were able to tap into this process before, almost not consciously, but you tapped into it, and that's how you were able to
Not
create the
consciously.
relationship that you're in.
I mean,
now.
pain is an extraordinary motivator.
Yes.
I mean, I would have anxiety attacks that last for days. The residuals of what happens when a woman is abused, like the way that affects and sculpts our nervous system, is really
yes.
significant. The imprints of how it affects us, not only physiologically but emotionally and mentally.
Yes.
And so I would say the pain for me was a catalyst of watching myself just go through consistent agony whenever I wanted to get close to someone. Just the stuff that would come up
Right.
was really overwhelming. So through the process of learning how to resource myself, tend to myself, complete unfinished things from the past, and to learn how to find where I could find footing in myself, where I wouldn't lose myself or turn into some modified version of myself because I thought that that's what would be
what's
lovable.
expected,
So
yeah.
through the process of it, I really learned how to find me. Bit by bit, just find me and
Right.
reconnect with me. And then through that, it just naturally, the quality of men that started coming in. I spent a year in this laboratory of love, as I called it, where
love
I
that.
literally was, even when I was on dates, I was watching, am I sitting back? Or am I leaning forward, spilling my energy into this man? Even if I didn't even like him, am I still spilling my energy into this
Yes.
man, trying to get him to want me?
Yes.
Even if
Oh
I
my
don't
God.
even want him. And I would literally just practice physically,
Yeah.
just leaning back, just that. So I would watch that. I'm seeing a lot of head nods here.
Yes,
So wait,
really.
so
I
wait,
was-
It's embarrassing.
because I date a lot, and I know Jarvis is single too, or engineering. There's not a camera on him, but he's single too.
And
We
he's,
all
and
relate.
he's
So
gorgeous.
We're like, yes, and so we Jarvis and I need this right now. So okay, so you're saying we need to go through the steps in the process, in what do you call it, in a condensed form. But so you're saying you should lean back.
I'm not
should
saying-
lean in to try to get somebody interested, because that is like a physical. What's the word I'm looking for? Like a physical sign to them that you're lovable and you're listening and you want them to want you.
I'd
if you
say
lean in,
it's deeper than that.
Yeah.
I'm not, for me, it's not a like do this or don't do that or
exactly.
should that, which for some people that works.
Okay,
For
right.
me,
So
it was an
individual.
energetic sense of like, where am I inside? Like I wasn't like, it was like I was spilling myself out, like busting out from the edges of my skin, leaking my energy into this person, trying to get them
Yeah.
to
all these
love
light bulbs
me.
are going on.
Even if I didn't even
head.
know if this was a person that I was aligned with.
Exactly,
Like it
that's
was
what
almost
hit a
like
nerve.
the lights were on inside,
Yeah.
but no one was home. I was so focused on how could I manage this person's perception of me to like me while being disconnected from, do I even feel good around this person?
Yes.
Are we walking in the same direction in life? Am I drawn to this person?
You know, that's so important. I mean, that in itself is just, and what I hear you saying is it's not exactly sit back, sit forward.
It's an energetic, but I did do it physically.
But just
the physicality of it.
But it's almost like sitting back a little minute and watching your own behavior.
Yeah, like
being the witness
home.
to your behavior, because that is
Absolutely.
a trap that it's so true. We get so into trying to affect the other person, impress the other person. Do they like that? We just don't even figure what we want anymore. It's all
Well,
about-
you take that equation out of what you want, because for me, it's so I haven't dug deep enough, so it comes to my ego. Like,
Yes.
I don't care if I don't like you. You're going to like me no matter what. So by the
I
time I
love
walk
your
out of the
honesty.
room, it's so honest.
It is honest. It's fabulous.
It's such a horrible way to date, to not, because who wants to be rejected, right?
And so, I mean, I appreciate the laughter, right? But it's like, it's such an
true.
honest indicator of
so-
where we're coming from.
Yeah.
Because we as women,
Jarvis.
in particular, we have been socialized to believe
Yes.
that our power comes from our ability to manage and manipulate how you feel or think about me.
Absolutely.
That's me.
And so
That's
what you're talking about, we all know that.
Yes.
And that's what we're
Exactly.
coming out of.
Right.
Like,
And
how
that's
do
why
I
we're all laughing.
Yeah,
We
we
can
all know
relate.
it.
we know it, so I just admitted
Yeah.
it.
I mean,
But-
look at the beauty industry for one.
Yeah.
It's all about managing perception.
That's right.
Look at the inordinate focus on wealth and status. It's all so much of it, not all of it, but so much of it is about managing perception.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
what we're finding everywhere is, how do we stay connected to what's real and then express ourselves from what's real versus our blessed little egos that are like,
Oh my
love
God.
me,
It
want
just,
me,
it's
choose
just
me.
so in front, you know.
Yeah,
it just
it's so in
takes
front.
over,
And we all do
nobody
every
wants to
day.
be rejected, and that's
Nobody
my
does.
biggest. You know, there's lots of little rejections we go throughout our day, but the hardest rejection to take is from another human being who's rejecting the way you look or the way you talk or whatever. The physical and it's just so hard to have
It's
that.
so hard, but then the deeper dive, which just isn't the easy part, and the ego hates this, is to, again, look at the mirror. Why did I call this into my realm?
Right.
How are they mirroring my own self-rejection?
Yes, exactly.
Because
Have
if
to work
it
on that.
usually it won't snag unless it has juice for us, like it won't snag.
Yeah.
And so it's the deeper dive that's the
Makes
harder thing to
sense.
look at, but it's where our freedom is.
Yeah.
I mean, the
So-
reality is other people's perceptions of us has like very, very little. It's like, I think it's something like 5%.
Is it even
like,
that much?
It's actually, I gave it 5. I think it's even 3%. I mean, 97% of how people react to us are based on the first few years of their life.
Yes.
And it has nothing
Yeah, I
to
gotta
do with
go
who
back
we
to
are.
that.
That's when the intimacy model is
yes.
laid down.
It is so important to me what people think. And I've had, my best friends say to me, you won't date this guy because you're so worried that what people are going to think. Give him a chance. You step back. Step back. It doesn't matter what people think. And I know as a coach, I impart that all the time to my clients. Don't worry about some clients won't step into a gym because they're so intimidated. And it's like, we don't give a crap about
Yeah.
what people think. We're
And
working on you.
What I love doing with people, similar, taking with what you're saying, which is so beautiful, is then actually helping them find the way to genuinely release the caring of what people think.
Yes.
I
Because
need
there's
to do
only
that
so
for
many
myself.
commands we can give ourselves because we all know better. So, but we can't tell ourselves or will ourselves to not care or
Right.
not worry about what people think.
Right.
But there is a restoration process that actually builds enough of us inside so we're less vulnerable to being pulled out in that way.
Right.
And so it's actually genuine, where
Yes.
we're really
Yeah.
not caring as much,
So
or
you
we're
have
not buying
to do
into
that
it.
work because otherwise, it becomes one of those things that could be a deal breaker because you're always worried about what people think when you're with this person.
And it could go to the other way around. Some people stay in really abusive relationships because, again, they think it makes them look good to be with a certain person
Yeah.
that behind doors might be abusing them, but they're so attached to how it looks rather than what they really
What's
experience.
really going on? Yeah.
But I always remember somebody, and I think also, just want to talk to this for a minute. Sometimes when you've had a traumatic childhood, your defense is to always be reading other people. It's like it's that heightened fight or flight. It's like if I can read where you are. So you get highly attuned to other people and you disconnect from really who you are and what you need in life. I remember somebody giving me a book once when I was about 20 called What You Think of Me Is None of My Business.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
And I remember going, what a stupid title. Of course it matters what people think of me. And I just couldn't get it.
book. Do you have that book on a book?
I do. I bought it again recently because I always remembered it. But there's so many better books now about the same thing.
But
it
it's
really
still the same premise.
It's and it's not being insensitive. It's just reclaiming your power.
And even beyond that, my approach is really, it's a psycho-spiritual approach. It takes into consideration that, yes, we have a psychology.
Yes.
We have our history, we have conditioning, we have our thoughts and feelings and beliefs and all of this. But so that's the psycho. The spiritual approach is the bigger picture that we all are these beautiful beings sent from the divine.
Right.
However you want to call it, sent from the divine intelligence of life, God, spirit, whatever you want to call it. We all are connected to that ray of light. So we can't forget that.
And
what we're here to remember is it's staying in the light, but it's also a waking up inside of ourselves to what's really true. Like, is it true? Even if I'm feeling this, is it really true? Even if I'm feeling rejected, is it really, really true? Like, the more that we're able to access and resource ourselves from our deeper wisdom, this extraordinary compass that we each have, that we've all been encoded with. Nobody is without it.
No, exactly.
Well, whether we attune to it or not is another thing.
So potent. Can we get to that process of accessing the deeper self? And how does someone like me, let's say, start? We're not going into this preconceived that it matters what people think. How do I get rid of that surface and go, or anybody for that matter? In your working with your clients,
in my
your
experience,
workshops.
it's like we take this both and approach. So we take into consideration the effects of how early childhood conditioning is affecting us. The messages in our mind, how is it replaying what we were taught? So there is the psychological clearing out of our conditioning, and simultaneously the both and. So simultaneously, there's continuing to bring our awareness to what's already wonderful, whole, and complete, where we already can experience trust, where we can already experience our goodness. So it's a both and.
The bringing in kind of flushes the
Absolutely.
old out.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
So we want to be aware. We want to be aware of how our conditioning is running us. It's crucial because we have these psychologies, we have these personalities, to be aware of where we may be we're just playing out the repository of what we've learned versus what's genuine or real for us. So we want to be aware of how our ego is playing out through, repetitive patterning based on what, our defense mechanisms, our coping skills, like all of the stuff that happened back then. We want to be aware of how it's running us because this stuff can be tricky. And we want to keep going back to what's true because we don't want to be in this endless pursuit of trying to heal the past from the perspective of the ego that feels broken.
Yes.
We want to equally get to know the part of ourself that is untarnished and that is whole and luminous and complete.
And exists inside all of us. So it's not, I think a lot of the personal development or personal growth is the misnomer is that there's something out there that I need to become or to get or whatever, where it's really just an internal journey to finding that part of us. Like you said, we're all part of the divine. We all share it. Nobody's better than anybody else. It just gets hidden because we're so in our heads thinking about other people.
Like you said, the media plays such, you look at the life, let's say, of a very famous actor or actress, and you look at them and you go, they're so lucky, or why couldn't that be me, or I could have done that, and then you just start beating yourself up of the things that you didn't do that could have led you to that path, and you look, you're so envious. It's envy, which is different than, feeling rejected because of your ego, but envy and jealousy can play such a huge part on not moving forward and destroying your psyche to a point where you just think you go back and you get out of the light and you go to that dark place that says that you're never going to be, you're not enough, you're never enough. And you'll never be like that or them, and you think that you can't do it. And until you can clear out that garbage, basically, you can't really bring, I would think, a really genuine, loving relationship
Sure.
into your life.
And my experience with that, like you did such a beautiful job narrating, like what's really common for a lot of people, like the thought process for a lot of people. And I find that there's this delicate balance of like we want to clear out the garbage, and we also don't want to reject the garbage, because sometimes
gotta
there's
create
a
who we are.
process of being in this oppositional energy to our challenges, our pain. Because underneath all of that like that picture that you just painted of somebody that's in that place, you know, my guess is there's a lot of heartbreak underneath it. There's pain underneath
I'm
that.
always reminded of that. I'm going to get it wrong, but it's the Chinese man that had the son, and he found a horse, and the son. And everybody kept saying to him, the farmer, "Oh, you're so lucky you found a horse." And then his son rides the horse, and then his son falls off, breaks his leg. And they all go, "Oh, you're so unlucky, your son broke his leg." And then they were drafting for the army or something, and the son couldn't go. "Oh, you're so lucky, your son has a broken leg." But the point is, we can always look and make a judgment about, "Oh, that all looks amazing." But we don't know. I mean, we just don't know. That's the whole point.
And, you know, the 3 Ds, disconnection, disempowerment, disingenuous.
Yeah.
Like, it's disempowering for ourselves to judge our past. Not to say that we want to repeat it, like especially things that we're engaging in, you know, that might not show up, you know, they don't really get us what we want, which is a sense of, like, happiness. But we don't want to judge it. We don't want to make it wrong, because that perpetuates the disconnection and the disempowerment. So there is a process of having the courageous heart that where we look in the mirror, look at our behavior, you know, look at what we're doing, look at the negative beliefs that we're bought into, and from a place of self-acceptance and love, look at how we can let it go. Not from this place of, oh my gosh, this is awful, I need to get rid of this, I need to get rid of this thought, or I need to get rid of this belief, or I need to get rid of this habit, because that just continues to reinforce disconnection. We're trying to cut off parts of ourselves.
No, exactly. You're
Instead
using
of the
force.
process of reconnecting of like, okay, dear one, like, let's do this a little bit better. Let's look at if we can let go of the self-defeating, you know, habit. Let's see if we can let go of this because we care. We want to be at ease inside.
And
I
like
love-
you say about,
go ahead.
just about being gentle with yourself, because everything you described is just part of being human.
It is.
It's just human. We
There's no
all
way out
share
of
it.
it.
But-
Exactly.
and I
being
love-
acceptance, but remember that we are spiritual beings, have a human
Yes.
But
experience.
sometimes and that's the whole thing about working with coaches, and especially a coach for this, is, you know, we need that reminder. We need somebody to keep us on track, to do the steps, because it's very difficult to do that work without, you know, guidance, really, of you know, somebody who understands and like you has gone through it. So you have an 8-week
Yes, I
course
was just
coming
gonna
up.
get to
yeah,
that too.
because
Let's
we
go
want
through
to
each
let's go
week.
through the week so people can understand what the process will be for them to generate this amazing relationship. They're creating extraordinary love.
Yes.
So, yes, it's Foundations of Extraordinary Love. And so it's my signature program. It's an 8-week online coaching program for highly self-aware women.
Anyone in the world can
Anyone in
because
the
it's
world
online.
can join in.
Okay.
This one in particular is for women. I do couples work and work with men in other ways. But this is for women. This is our, if you go to foundationsofextraordinarylove.com, you can learn more. And it's, to me, what I found, what supports an educational transformational model, because that's what I do. I love educating on the art of transformation. So we can take these concepts and actually learn how to apply them so they become our lived experience. So this course goes through educating, learning the skills that actually go into creating healthy relationship dynamics. There's a whole skill set that very few of us were taught. So there's a big portion on educating. Each week there's a different theme that will be, there will be a educational transformational teaching module on. And then we go into practical application experience. We then go into coaching sessions. So we have a live coaching session each week where we get to take what we just learned and then put it into application in our life. Like, where does this fit for me? How is this showing up for me? Where can I learn from this? So then it becomes part of our lived experience.
Are they one-on-one coach? They're
This is
phone
a group-
calls.
this is a group
so
video.
people can learn from each other too on these phone calls
It
from
is
others'
so
experiences,
healing.
right?
For women in
I
particular,
agree.
For women in particular, it is so healing to know that we can both simultaneously fall apart, but also be seen for our wholeness. That we don't have to front
And you're
as
not
having
alone.
it all together, that we're not alone. And there's a similar trajectory that we're all on. And then the final part is a high level of reflection process. process. Because for me, until we actually bring this work, this education into our direct experience and start to find the places inside where we have space to hear our wisdom, to reflect, to take in, because we're in this world that crowds out our inner authority, that crowds out our inner voice. There's so much noise telling us how we need to be. So I've set it up so all of those points are touched upon.
Now, is
each
this
week.
a certain number of people, or can as many people as want join in?
Currently, I'm holding them for 12 women at a time.
Okay.
Because part of this is we're learning how to create healthy relationships.
Yes, exactly.
And a lot of women get overwhelmed when there's too many people. So these little pods of 12 women, and we do them in the video conferencing, so that way we can look in each other's eyes, hear each other's voices, and there's a high level of interaction, because so many women, not only are we wanting greater relationships with, our beloved, but we also want sisterhood. We also want connection.
Oh, that's
and the same stuff that shows up in our love
huge.
relationships are very often the same things that show up in our girlfriends.
Right.
So I've created, it's like little mini communities so we can
Yeah.
practice these skills in developing intimacy, trust, connection, safety with our girlfriends, like our sisterhood, and recreate a new model that we bring this to our men or our beloveds in our lives.
Oh, it makes so much
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely.
It's so relevant. I
Oh
think
my goodness,
so.
it's so
you know?
exciting. So give your website again and how people can contact you.
So
and there's lots of other
Yeah.
things you do as well.
Right,
isn't
and
it?
you work
Yeah.
one-on-one with people. And,
I work one-on-one, long-term one-on-one. I create private retreats in Hawaii, and I do
Yes, I
couples
know.
coaching, which I love. But if you go to foundationsofextraordinarylove.com or my primary website, GabriellaTaylor.com, you can learn more about all these goodies.
Wonderful.
Okay.
And,
And
when,
then we
when does
wanna-
the next foundation of
The summer one will be filling in, I believe the spring one is already full. So our summer one will be filling for July. We'll be starting in July.
starting in
Okay, so they
July.
can go and sign up for July now?
Absolutely.
They can do that.
Absolutely.
That's great.
That's
okay.
so wonderful.
So we want you to
Yes.
share some 3 tips with us that you want to give people on creating extraordinary love that they can do on their own right here, right now.
So what that they can do on their own right here, right now. One, really explore your intimacy model. What did you see growing up? What were the messages you received?
Okay.
What did you learn about, and learn, I say implicitly, not necessarily things you were taught, but what did you observe about honesty, communication, affection, men, women's roles in relationship? So number one, look at what you saw. Like, get really curious about what you saw. Then really look at, well, what's your love story been? When did you first fall in love? When was your first heartbreak? Were there divorces? Have you been single for a long time? Like, what has your actual story been? And how does it connect to your intimacy model, what you saw? Because chances are you'll see a lot of overlap where what your experience has
makes
been
sense.
what you've carried over from the past. Number 3, really start looking at what your love print is. I call it your love print. It's this blueprint, this foundational blueprint, the infrastructure that hold our relationship rules. What are the rules that we have in terms of how we are with ourselves? Do we lose ourselves in love? Are the other person's needs more important? Are our needs more important? Like, what are these rules that are built in? What is the outer form? What's the blueprint for the type of person that we call into our lives?
Yeah.
So the more we look at what we saw when we were little, how it's played out in our actual experience, what are the rules and assumptions we bought into about relationships, then from there, there's space to start looking at, what do I really want? Beyond what the form might be, what they look like, or what they drive
There
for a
it
car.
is in a nutshell,
But like,
right?
what would bring out my best? Like, what would it be if I could have it all my way?
How would that-
What would, if my relationship was a mirror for my glory and my light, what would I be doing? What would I be creating in my life? What would I be giving back in my world?
Love that. That's like a
beautiful.
do we know what do you call them? Board, a vision
Like a
board,
vision
a
board,
vision
but-
board, but for extraordinary love.
But so much deeper than that.
Yes, of course.
Vision boards, I sometimes think
no.
can be a little superficial.
No, but I mean,
want this and I
you
want
do
it.
those steps, and then
We want
that's
to clear
there
out the
with that.
closets first.
Yeah.
Yes,
Clear out
exactly.
the closets.
Yeah.
We are out of time. So we, again, give your website really quick.
GabriellaTaylor.com, foundationsofextraordinarylove.com.
We cannot
Wonderful.
recommend that you visit Gabriella's website enough. Even if your relationship is going good, it can always be better. You can always look for something to make it more extraordinary.
There's
you know?
always more possible.
Yeah,
Yes, I just want to do a
exactly.
quick testimonial too. I have worked with Gabriella myself, and she is absolutely amazing. So anybody
Good.
listening out there,
And she's got some extraordinary love in her life.
yes,
as
I
well
do.
know.
I have a
So,
wonderful, wonderful partner. And
Yes.
so,
We thank you for joining us. Thank you,
My pleasure.
Gabriella. And
Yes.
we're going to see everybody here next week. We're Dell and Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul.
Soul.
Bye, everybody. See you next week. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody. Thank you.
To let myself is the only way.